On the agenda this evening is the public comment, guest presentations, board discussion items, which is a motion to approve and execute Local 162 Massachusetts Coalition of Police, IUPA, AFL-CIO, motion to execute town manager contract, motion to appoint members to various boards of the committees, which would be the mosquito control board, motion to support the GURR IRAP grant application, and discuss and approve costs of North Street Engineering Services. We'll open it up to public comment.
Through the chair. This is Christine Scott from 16 Christian Road. I have a clarification on a comment that was made at the last meeting about recycling. Because E.L. Harvey does most of the processing of recycled materials mechanically, not physically. So if you were to go to the elharvey.com website, it's /recycling. They have a really good video about what they do. And I've been there before the tour for teachers, and most of it is mechanical rather than physical. So that was my only comment.
Thank you, Christine.
Thank you.
Yes.
Hi there, I'm Kathy Taylor. I wanted to speak about Heritage Park.
I just got the email about that. I don't know if you or Steve have a chance to go through it. I'd really like to set that up as a meeting item.
I'm hoping at the end of August it can be a regular meeting item, but because the Heritage Park was bought in 2005, 2006, opened in 2012. And it used to be spearheaded by the Upton Historical Commission with open space helping out, and then it went to the Board of Selectmen. You're now in charge of the park.
And that's where I would like to get into the nitty gritty, and I'd really like to dissect your information before I feel comfortable discussing.
The only thing, and I've talked to Dennis Westgate a little bit about it, and one of my huge concerns are the invasive plants here. It's very time sensitive. If we can't, so what I'm asking for tonight is just permission for the Board of Selectmen to continue our work with invasive species, because it's very timely now. Basically, the park had all these trees called autumn olive trees. And there are many, many trees. And we took away all those trees. The trees have repopulated. If we don't really get to it now, all the birds are going to eat. The seeds are going to replant themselves. So it's really kind of an emergency. If we could, it's this thing called an RDA, request for determination of applicability. It's just for the Board of Selectmen to confer with Concom and just give the okay to particularly deal with invasive species with a lot of berries. And we can cut those down.
And I think that's what we should do, is to confer first with conservation. And get that, set up something with conservation. I'd really like to go through it and learn all about it.
Is that something in conservation? So who would actually bring that before conservation?
Concom, Marcel is going to hand it up on Zoom also, but Concom spoke about it briefly at their last meeting.
Yes.
And Concom was very involved in the park and did a lot of this, coordinated with volunteers to do a lot of the invasive elimination. And they understand that it's a time-sensitive kind of thing, and so that request for determination of applicability. If the board of selectmen can give Derek the authority to sign the document on behalf of the town, then the Concom could meet on their meeting on August 25th, and then I think something has to go in the paper, and then by the 31st, which is your next meeting, you know, we should be able to come together at that meeting and have a, you know, a bigger hearing and talk more about it. There's bigger problems about, you know, management plan and who's doing what. And we're just asking kind of for an emergency, get rid of the automobile ferries in August, because if we don't, if we wait longer, we're gonna lose our window.
And is that going to be done by volunteers?
Yes, I've been talking with Dennis, but I tried to explain to him is you don't have to do something every day. You don't have to do something every week. There's a time in late summer, early fall, when all the berries are out that you have to work on them. And then in the fall, you have to identify the plants, and then you cut them to the ground. You take them over with something that DPW has, and then it goes into the roots. So that it's like just key times you have to really act on it. And because it's a wetland, it has to go through Concom, and the Board of Selectmen have to work with Concom so that we can do this properly.
Is Dennis, yeah, I had this, have you talked to Dennis at all about
Dennis,
this?
I have not had this conversation. Through the chair, if I could ask, did Dennis commit that the DPW was able to do this? Because he has not raised this.
Well, we've had conversations about it, and I was on the phone with him about 2 weeks ago, and I was really explaining that it was, you know, very kind of key times, and that working with volunteers. But he thought that he asked that I come up with a seasonal schedule.
Through the chair, if I could.
Yeah.
Are you talking about applying pesticides to these?
At some point in the fall, but all we're looking for right now is to cut down those branches with all the invasive berries on them. I think Marcella might want to add to it because part of the volunteer group and she is part of Concom. I'm thinking it might be helpful.
Marcella?
Yes, hi. Thank you for hearing this out. I agree that this is something that is going to need to be discussed in more depth amongst the group of you. But as Kathy mentioned, there's some time sensitivity about getting to these invasive plants. I did bring it up with Concom at their last meeting, and they recommended doing the RDA. And the timing of that is such that it would need to happen as soon as possible, and certainly before your next meeting. So what we're hoping for right now is just your approval to allow the paperwork for the RDA to take place and to come before the Concom. The Concom will then guide us as to whether or not this should even take place. But nothing really could take place until your next meeting anyway. So what we just want to do is make sure we have the approval from Concom lined up, should they give the approval, and then come before you for a more, more conversation about it. There's an awful lot that Heritage Park, in the last 10 years or so, their basic maintenance has taken place there. It's been mowed, and there's been a scout project put in. There's a shed and a kiosk there, and we'd just like to build on that and move forward and just get it more to the place where it was about 10 years ago when it was cleaned up. And we will need the help of various volunteer boards to do that. And hopefully, we will be discussing with you how to move forward with that. Certainly nothing would be taking place without the approval of the select board, since you are the managing entity in this on this property.
Thank you, Marcella.
Through the chairperson, for conservation, we have ample time to put the hearing on for August 25th, and I would anticipate opening it and closing it that night, and we will probably get doors issued within the next couple of days. So then the project can move forward very quickly.
But we would very much like to have you understand what's going on, and in the RDA has to be very we'll be very specific about writing it up, informing everything that is intended to take place in terms of invasives management and any activity near the water will need to be written up on this RDA, and that will come before you for you to review and sign. We just want to make sure that you understand that that's something that will be coming before you, and that if we can get it timed correctly and get it on the CONCOM agenda for the 25th, that would certainly help expedite the attack we need to make on these invasive plants. And that's not the only thing that needs to be done there. There are, there's more brush cleaning that needs to be done to open up the area. Some of the trails have grown back in. So there's a lot that needs to be done there, and that would all
needs to be done, and a lot of information in your letter in particular. And I think that the board would like to be able to read through all the information. I don't know, Brett or Steve, do you have anything about going forward with the RDA?
I do have one thing possibly to add to it, if I may, Madam Selectman. My understanding is Kathy's conversation.
You hear us? Hold on a second.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, I mean, it sounds to me like it is, basic maintenance of open space. It sounds like it would be nothing that I would be in opposition to, but I do agree with you, Marty. I did get a chance to look at it this afternoon. I was reading through a bunch of emails, but I didn't get a chance to open up all the different tabs with all the different information that you had. You had one document, I think, that's 30 plus pages. So I would like to read through all that. I don't know if this is a situation where it's the chicken and the egg, but I mean, if you can proceed with CONCOM and give us some time to get caught up on the information, perhaps we could certainly address it on the 31st. I don't know if it's a situation where we have to act first, but again, I'll defer to either one of you, whatever you think.
I would just add, so I'm hearing two things, right? It sounds like there's so certainly the background is important. An agenda item is important, but I think that what I'm hearing is that there's sort of a much broader plan that needs to be proposed for maintenance of Heritage Park, but there's also some specific activity that you want to happen before the 25th or before the 31st. Is that right?
We just want the paperwork cleared. We wouldn't do anything. We wouldn't start anything. But if we start the paperwork at the end of August, it's going to be too late.
Okay, so then the board now,
and the board
is it something that we can go through like Derek on and just say, work with Derek or delegate the decision making to Derek between now and the 31st, or?
Through the chat, honestly, Dennis has submitted IDAs in the past, so I don't know why this specific IDA is going from the Board of Selectmen. So I think to your question, we could manage this.
We don't know anything about property management or invasive species or maintenance.
I do have to say that, Dennis, certainly the DPW has a lot going on, especially in the summer. If you think this is a priority, you can put this at the top of the list, but I haven't had Dennis tells me pretty much everything. He hasn't brought this to my attention. I actually just texted him. He's still
so there's no work that needs to take place in the next 30 days. If it's just paperwork, I think the thing we would really want to consider, and frankly, Derek, you and Dennis can manage it from my perspective, is whatever the work is, the hours, or spending taxpayers' money. That's certainly something we're interested in. But if it's just administrative paperwork to put together a plan or a proposal or what have you, that's fine.
If I could just throw out a quick idea. I think what she's asking, and similar, if you think when the Girl Scouts wanted to do plantings on town common, we have to kind of authorize work to be done on town property. So this may be something as simple as that. If you look at
It's because of wetlands and the CONCOM.
But what I'm understanding is you have to have the RDA done first before you can go forward with the conservation.
You have to, This is new to me also.
I really think Derek.
The board,
I think, yeah.
The
If
board
you need
gives
anything
Derek
from
the
the board,
authority to sign the document.
hold on one second, please. If you need anything from us, let us know.
Yeah.
And figure it out. We absolutely support taking care of Heritage Park. I think we all agree on that. None of us is a fan of invasive species taking over one of our prized parks like Heritage Park. It's a very important location. We all agree on that. We all want to make sure it's well cared for. And there'll be, and so we absolutely will support that. Derek will give you what you need. If there's anything that he can't do, if he needs the board, he'll let us know. Otherwise, Derek's got you covered.
But
How's
could I
that?
say one thing? I just want to say one thing. There's even a lot of poison ivy there that needs to be managed. It's right on the trail where people are coming, tourists are coming. Heritage Park is in books and people come from all over the state to visit it. And it's not been being taken care of, and it needs to be taken care of. And she's only asking for permission to get the invasive species before the berries fall and make way more work later on. And she talked with Dennis, and he said he could do it if she just give him a schedule. And so I think it's just a formality.
It's more than a formality if it involves getting the DPW involved. And I think Derek and Dennis Westgate can handle that part of it.
All right.
I guess my question, and I haven't been involved in town government in a few years. Does the Board of Selectmen, and Marcella might have to help me, does the Board of Selectmen tonight have to let Derek know, or can they do that another time? I thought the Board of Selectmen tonight to give Derek the authority to do
Well, we don't, since it's not on the agenda. This is a public comment period, so you can come, you can present, you gave us information, we told you that we support what you're doing, we asked you to work with Derek, and if you have additional questions beyond that, let us know. And you'll be on the agenda for the 31st, so we can talk more about it and have time to go through the documentation.
Okay.
If we need to have a special meeting because there's something absolutely critical,
We can do that.
we can absolutely have a special meeting. We've done that in the past. For an administrative reason, if something comes up, we can get together, the three of us, have a 5-minute agenda and give him the approval to do something if it's absolutely time critical.
Okay.
No problem.
And I tried to dug out of my computer all the old information about Heritage Park.
Can present all that. You should actually with Dennis and
I can work on that.
Derek.
Okay, I didn't mean to overwhelm, I just wanted to try to take
The
the
30 page are overwhelming.
Sorry about that.
When we put you on this agenda item, then we can take action. It's easier for us to take action. We're better prepared for the discussion.
Right. We could have voted on it if we wanted to.
Okay, thank you very much.
So very- Thank you.
5 point, guest presentations. Is that? None. Board discussion items. We need a motion to approve and execute Local 162 Massachusetts Coalition of Police IUPA AFL-CIO. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion that we execute the memorandum of agreement between the town of Upton and local 162 Massachusetts Coalition of Police dated July 22nd, 2021.
I second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous action. 6.3, motion to appoint members to various boards and committees.
6.2.
Oh, I'm sorry. 6.2.
We're going to
Motion to execute town manager's contract. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion that we execute the employment agreement between the town of Upton Board of Selectmen and Derek Brindisi.
I'll second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous action. 6.3, motion to appoint members to various boards and committees.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well deserved.
Yes, congratulations. And this is on the mosquito control board, the Board of Selectmen member and a BOH member.
Did someone grab the other member?
Yeah.
Would you like me to do this?
Is that one? Yeah.
Okay. Any background, any questions? No questions, no comments? Okay. So make a motion to appoint to the Mosquito Control Commission from the Board of Selectmen, Brett Sides.
Second. All those in favor? Aye.
Congratulations, thank you very much.
Okay.
Fellow board members.
And also make a motion to appoint to the Mosquito Control Board, the representative from the Conservation Commission, Stedman Briggs.
No, that's from the Board of Health.
Oh, I got conservation. Wrong. Board of Health, sorry about that. Can we
Okay.
amend that motion? Board of Health, Stedman Briggs.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 6.4, motion to support GURR-IRAP grant application.
Mr. Milowski is here from the railroad.
Oh, good.
There he is.
Good evening, Mr. Milanowski.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. I see you're aggressively moving through your agenda, so I hopefully won't take too much time. But you have in front of you an IRAP grant application. In summary, in the quick summary, and I'll go into as much detail as you want. This is a public-private partnership between the state of Massachusetts and railroads to support freight rail growth. With that, this is for some infill tracks within the confines of our facility. We are not looking to expand the footprint or to expand the area that's developed. This is for internal track for the site, as well as doing some additional site improvements, which will include improving the access over to Hartford Ave. With this, I was able to provide a tour to members of the Board of Selectmen last week, and I hope that was very informative to people and pointed this area out where it'll take place. And then I guess I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Brett?
Can you talk a little bit more about the, so first of all, thank you for the tour. It was great, it was informational, and it was really, really great to see all of the investment that you guys are making in that facility, and the partnership that you've had with the community and the fire chief and other members of local government. So thank you for that. And I know you guys have gone above and beyond with a lot of the safety protocols and the labeling and all of that. So thank you for that. Can you talk a little bit more about the track extension by the, I don't know what you call them, the bins for the wood pellets, and also the access over to Hopkinton Ave, and why the fire chief thought that was important?
Sure. So two items, and actually after the tour that we had with the Board of Selectmen, we were fortunate to have the state fire marshal come down to the site, and as well as the fire department, just to wrap up a few other items in our public-private partnership. The area track that we're looking to is it's next to the pellet plant, and it's basically to extend the track so we can fit another, I believe it's 4 to 6 rail cars per track. By doing that, it reduces the amount of switching that we have to do, so you have less clanking of the rail cars, because we could put in, longer or mini trains, if you will, into those different areas. That does reduce down some of the coupling of the areas. And that'll be then primarily used for storage and or to provide for additional rail cars that can be unloaded into the pellet facility. I think we've all seen right now the increase of petroleum has been gone up in the last year. And with that, we're expecting a stronger market this year as it relates to the wood pellets, as many people are moving to the wood pellet process to save money on their home heating process. As it relates to better access to the local road is right now in part of our fire review and in public safety review that we've been working with the town on for well over a year. Our current main access is off of Maple Street, and that's the primary access. And we can access off of Depot Street, but that gets complicated. And we can have access off of, I believe it's Hartford Ave as well. But that also requires crossing some of the rail tracks. So at the request of the fire department, we're going to improve the access so that, God forbid they ever do need to get access to the site, they'll have, more than one point of egress into the property.
Thank you.
Anything, Steve?
And just one quick follow-up question. What approximately how much is that expansion of that track going to be as far as in linear feet? I think you had mentioned it. Selectman Simus's gratitude. It was a very informative tour that you gave us last week. Thank you for that.
Thank you. I'm just looking through my. In total, I believe we're looking at about 1,500 feet of track in the 3 different areas.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I don't have any.
Yep. No, this looks good. I mean, it's a couple of pages here. It's looks like is this a $24 million project? Is that right? The total project cost?
That is, and that includes the construction of the facility and all of the engineering design and consultants that have gone into it. So it's a total project cost that is the investment that's happening in Upton.
Yeah. And then it looks like it's 2,120 linear feet. So that's the additional relay rail that's going to be put in. The rail switches, rail bumpers, the grading and ballast. I'm just reading this more for public consumption than anything else, Mike. There's a form for folks on the phone. There's a form that gets submitted, which is the IRAP application cover sheet, which really summarizes the project. 3 tracks as proposed as phase 1 in the upper yard for new business and the new use of these tracks. In addition to the new businesses at the facility, they're going to need to add 2 tracks in phase 2 in the lower yard to receive the rail cars. So that's all part of what this project is for, this application is for. It looks like this project would be completed. When would this be completed? I see June. Is that June of 2022?
June of 2022, yes.
Yeah, okay. Okay, that's it. Thank you. I'm good.
Okay. You have a motion?
Anybody? Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, I'm good.
All right. I make a motion that the board support the Grafton Upton Railroad IRAP grant application.
Second motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous action. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Yeah, doesn't take very long. I think they can set the time on it somehow, well, right? See you doing that.
Yes.
That's me.
I pulled a different report was.
I was gonna say, I could see that.
You're a holdout, right?
6.5 is to discuss and approve costs of the North Street engineering services. I think we would like to push this off until we actually want to know what we're going to ask Area and Howland to do.
Right. So the cost proposal right now is a little north of $10,000 for G&H to look at the existing plans that were previously approved for this 100 parcel, and then develop a conceptual open space subdivision plan based on those are already previously approved. So if we're not prepared to have that conversation, maybe we spend some time taking a look at what was already approved,
Right.
before we go ahead and spend.
Yeah.
You agree with that?
I mean, I would like to do that. I don't think I appreciated my own fault that what we were asking them to do was to literally sort of propose a design layout for a open space or cluster subdivision. So given that, I would like to discuss it because it's worth looking at what both of the options are for me.
Yeah.
But if you guys agree on something else, that's totally okay too.
No, I agree. As you both mentioned, I think there's some additional information similar to what was brought forward earlier. You have a lot of additional information. We're just not prepared at this point, but it's good to have it on the agenda so we can at least, have a public discussion about it. have a better idea of what we're trying to achieve, what our options really are. So, so I think if we can pick this up again on the 31st and have a chance, Derek, I think you said you had some additional files that you could share with us.
Yeah, Mike Penko provided all the files going back to the 80s, various subdivisions that were approved. So I'm happy to share all that information with you, take a look at it, and give myself better direction as to what you want to head. I think ultimately what we're trying to identify is if we were to sell the 106 acres of land, what would be the minimum bid price based upon the number of house lots that can be accomplished?
Yes. Yeah.
Is that 20 or is that?
And just to be clear, so there's right, because there's the bylaws as written, because it's like, obviously, ultimately, it's the planning board that sort of gives the final approval of these things. It's obviously not us, we know that. But the bylaws right now, we have support both an open space development. So we've got the bylaws in place, sort of a by right open space, you can do it. And then the other alternative is sort of the traditional development. So those are really the two options available to a development. We have plans in hand that look at sort of the traditional development subdivision layout that
riding on a shooting star.
And then what we'll be looking at is sort of say like, okay, does that seem
Heading
reasonable,
out
or
toward a
can we
dream.
get more value by doing an open space layout?
Tomorrow's
thing
even
is the open space
closer
layout, but kind of what cost,
than it
sort
seems.
of aesthetic, community feel, price.
Moving through the cloudless sky,
Yeah, I think one other question I found.
heading out toward
Think
the
about it,
moon.
have this as an option is, once we look at those options,
I am
again, I
dancing
mentioned one of the two
too.
different ways to look at the property as far as a development standpoint. Can we somehow insert that into the bid process so that when we put a property out to bid and we establish what we feel is the minimum bid price, can we also say, this is what we are asking for?
Yes.
Is that something that we can?
That would be done in the RFP, right?
Right, that would be in the bid specs. And, I did a site visit with Mike and Bill today, just to look at the Westboro Road property. And Jeff Standing from G&H was there as well, and we talked about specifically the Westboro Road property. And we talked about the easement, that was a purpose why we went up there. And it was his suggestion, we put the easement language in the bid specs versus doing it in advance. So to answer your question, yeah, we can pretty much put anything we want in the bid specs.
It's similar to what we were doing, right, with the church and the property next door, right? We could sort of,
Yep.
And I wonder, and but I wonder if part of that could also be, I don't know if you would ever do this, right, sort of like, the planning board supports this so that it's, I don't know if that increases the value, right? Like if you have sort of a pre-approved development, you can sell that for more than something that's just sort of a proposal or a voice. So I wonder if that may be another way to increase the value if the planning board says, yeah, we would approve this design or something like that to sort of increase the
So we
revenue
want
for
to
the town.
discuss with the planning board to do that.
Yeah, I think that the planning board would probably state that it was something, whatever proposal we put in front of them, it would be something that they may or may not be willing to support, which we could put in the bid specs, which is different than having permits in hand, right? So if we put that in the bid specs, then we actually have permits in hand, which would take us well over a year plus to do. I mean, that's
the
really,
value of it. That's what I was
having
wondering about.
permits in hand.
Yeah.
Now the developer just buys the property, has the permits, and they can break ground within weeks.
So we're not necessarily adding value, but we can at least give an indication of.
All right, that's what I was, because I knew that was a more value, but that's a whole different.
Which would take a long time.
Yeah,
So we have to
And a lot of research.
planning boards.
Yeah. All right, so we'll push that off to the agenda on the 31st. 7.0, town managers report and updates.
All right, so just a couple quick updates. Phase one, its project is now at substantial completion. So Dennis and Chief Brownlee are both, they have a meeting tomorrow scheduled with the contractor just to go through a punch list of items. So clearly you can see, they made a lot of dramatic improvements over this past summer construction season. The loops are in place over at the lights, and so we haven't received any other calls that folks are struggling to get through the light. The only thing, one of the punch list items, as we talked about the last meeting, when you add the 7 lights, it's difficult to determine which lights are yours based upon what you're saying. So they're still working on putting in those louvers to try to focus direction and where folks are. So that's moving forward. Phase 2, as you can tell, is under construction, the siding, the drainage, and things of that nature. Moving on from the TIP project, this was touched upon probably about a couple of months ago, and you may have read some media stories regarding PFAS testing. So PFAS is a chemical that was identified starting in New Hampshire in 2014. It's considered a forever chemical. PFAS, the chemical itself, is typically an additive found in firefighting foam. It's in churn-out gear. It's in non-stick pans, PFAS. And what they're starting to realize is that PFAS can have harmful effects to people's health. And the state has mandated all public drinking water suppliers test their water for PFAS. Some towns have found PFAS in their water. They've had to do a couple different mitigation methods. So if you have multiple wells, sometimes you can blend the wells to reduce the total concentration. Some towns, like Acton, I believe it was, had to build a PFAS treatment plant, specifically to take PFAS out of water. So the DPW was able to receive a grant, approximately $3,000, to conduct their PFAS testing in the next couple of weeks. So we'll get a better sense of how our wells are as far as PFAS. Depending on the results, we'll be having further public conversation about PFAS. So that's going to be, I think, a big one in the next 4 to 6 weeks. Speaking of invasive weeds, the Taft Pond and Pratt Pond were both treated this past week for invasive weeds. And as Michael Milanowski had pointed out, there was a visit over at the Grassy Mountain Railroad between our local fire officials and the state fire marshal. They're still working on a few of the kinks. I know you all had attended this site visit and had an opportunity to tour the facility, but it's not up and running yet because there's still some things that have to be resolved before they can go live with that. Typically contained in the areas, whether or not it can handle substantial spills. So again, our departments, code in particular as well, is actively engaged with the railroad. We plan to have a group meeting. Michael and I spoke today about bringing the engineers together with our folks to resolve some of these outstanding issues. So more to come on that. The ADA ramp, as you know, was approved for funding over at the Northland Steam Building this past annual town meeting. Kelly and I, we have been moving as quickly as we can on getting the ramp installed. So we met with Matt about a month ago to determine the best location for the ramp. Kelly and I have since had a follow-up meeting with AmRamp. So AmRamp would be the vendor we would use to construct the ramp. We're thinking it could be anywhere from $7,000 to $9,000 for the ramp itself. Kelly has recently talked to the company that would then go ahead and install the push button. So right now we just got to get the contractors there to do the plumbing, the electrical, and install the door. So based upon trying to get contractors in place, we're probably thinking that maybe by the end of September, we'll have the construction complete. And AmRamp says it's another 6 to 8 week lead time for them to construct the ramp. And they can't construct the ramp until they get the final elevations of the door. So we're actively working on it, but as you know, it's certainly taking time. Kelly has been taking the lead on that, so appreciate that. I think I quickly touched upon the Westboro Road site visit I had with Mike and Bill today. The G&H is going to submit to us a follow-up proposal. Originally, they had proposed that they would do a survey, cost of time of $7,500. After doing the site visit, they are recommending that we do not do the full survey, and they'll use something known as a compilation map that we could put as part of the bid specification, so that the potential developer could see where the wetlands are located, the topography of the property, and can then have a better sense of how many homes that we could fit in the Westboro property. They think that compilation map could be somewhere around $2,200 in total. And then the last item I have really is to talk about, get your permission on this one. So Dave Ross is the chairman of the EDC. Him and I had a meeting with Rep. Meridian a few weeks back. And the meeting was really to get a sense from our state rep as to whether or not it would be feasible to sit down with SDOT and convince them to extend the state tip project beyond Brook Street up to Prospect Street. And so we had a lot of good conversations, and we think given where the Upton Center Business District is located, going to Prospect Street with sidewalks would make a lot of good sense to do that. And then again, it would connect us up to the Palm Beach area. But one thing about Meridian had said is obviously he gets a lot of requests, and he didn't want to approach Mass DOT on this request unless the board thought that this was something that we should pursue. Dave wanted to come at a meeting. I don't think he's going to be present until August 31st, but I thought I would bring this up today to feel you out to determine whether or not you think that's something we should pursue with Mass DOT. Again, try to convince them to extend the state tip project up to Prospect Street, not just end at Brook Street. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on that before I go ahead and engage any state officials.
What does he think our chances are?
He said that there's a lot of federal money that's out there right now, and that state officials are looking for shovel-ready projects, and he thinks that this would be something that they could add as an addendum to the existing TIP projects. But again, we've already submitted requests to replace a lot of our AC pipe with some of these federal dollars. And we've also submitted a request to pay the town's portion of expanding the water and sewer up to the governor's landing area based upon potential shared infrastructure project. So we already have those sitting in front of state officials looking at that right now. So you kind of want to get a sense from us where are our priorities when it comes to infrastructure.
I think that would be a good tie-in with the sewer project and the water project.
Yeah, actually.
And the federal dollars is trying to create a business district for the economy.
You would think any opportunity that we have to get additional state dollars, in this case it's a TIP project, if we can get any opportunity to expand that, pick up another, whatever that would end up being, 1,000 feet of roadway, let's just say, that may be the case, that would be, great for the town. I suppose it's a matter of, if you look at it from the other side, they're going to William Street. So would it make any sense, if you had to pick one end of that project to try to expand it, would it make more sense to expand the William Street side or the side closer to the town center? I think when I look at it that way, it probably makes better sense to ask, near to the town center. Where we can unlock those other parcels.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, clearly, so my guess is that the reason Rep. Meridian is asking is because there are several things on the docket that Upton is sort of in the mix or in the conversation for. So he's asking for us to prioritize the 3 or 4 or 5 things that are sitting on his desk because he can't go there. Doesn't make sense for him to go there and say, hey, yeah, Upton wants these 5 things, because the first thing they're going to do is say, okay, well, they're not getting all of them, so give me the priority order list. So I think he wants to be able to do that. So, I don't know what's on that list. I know you just said a couple of things, but I think that we should look at whatever the 3 or 4 or 5 things, right? If it was just one thing, of course, yeah, extend it. It's no brainer. It's not our money, it's the state's money. Absolutely, more is better. But if it's at the expense of some other investment that the state or federal money could be used for, then I would want to understand that, prioritize based on all of the items on the list.
So I can follow with Rep. Meridian and have a conversation with him based upon how he strategically has these conversations. So one thing we know about Rep. Meridian is he does a really good job of getting us state money, right? And he often talks to me about his strategy and being able to do that, working with other state legislators. So I think that, maybe I should have a conversation, see what he's thinking as far as when he's gonna sit down with A&F to look at all the requests from the town and how they prioritize those items. So then we can come back maybe on August 31st. The state still, they're still working on the 25% design, so I don't think it's time sensitive right now to be able to make this decision tonight. But I do think that it's something he wants us to start to prioritize, given all the $50 that are. He may come back and say, listen, you guys want to extend the Prospect Street, just put it on the list, and I'll do whatever I can.
I was going to say, if it's a question of do we support it or not, of course we support it, at least from my perspective. If it's a question of where does it rank with regard to other things that are on Brett Meridian's desk to ask about, I don't know what else is on the list.
Yeah. So the projects for the sewer and the water is the ARPA, right?
Yeah, so the state is also receiving American Rescue Plan money as well, and they're trying to figure out how they're going to work with municipalities and supporting their capital needs. He's not making any guarantees. It's kind of like bond bill money. Every year we put in money for transportation bond bill, economic development bond bill. They put it in the bond bill itself, and it's approved. It says, the town of Upton's getting $1 million for X, but they never fund it. So this time they actually have money, and so they're just trying to determine how they're going to spread out.
Yeah, it'd be helpful if you could give us a heads up as far as what those items are on the list. And then, this may be a situation where it's short-term and long-term goals, because this project is a few years in the future. And maybe we could be awarded something in the short term. There may be something else on the list. So perhaps we will get more than one thing on this list if there's total dollars, as you had mentioned.
Now, is EDC ready to go out for an RFP?
For the town center redevelopment, not to my knowledge. And I believe Dave Ross is going to attend the August 31st meeting. He's asked to be placed on the agenda to talk about the EDC economic development plan. They want to finalize that. They want the board's approval to finalize that as well. So he'll talk a little bit more about that. But to my knowledge, they are in no place at this time to reissue the RFP. One thing that Paul, town planner, is working on is through this grant he was able to receive, we hired this company called COP Strategies. It's a New York City planning firm. One of the items on our top 5 is to assist us with rewriting the RFP as well. So we may get some technical assistance either through COP or through Mass Development on the RFP. So for those reasons, it's kind of a number of things in play that we see what happens. And so last, I just wanted to announce on the floor, just publicly thank the board for a contract extension. I just finished my 4th year in town. I just started here literally 3 weeks ago. So time does fly. So I really enjoy being here, and I think there's a lot of great things you've accomplished in 4 years, and I think the next 4 years is going to be greater things accomplished. So I'm excited to be here in the future. And so I just wanted to publicly thank you all for doing. The staff, as you already know, is great. People like Sandy and Kelly, they do great work. I thought I saw Chief Bradley, and Dennis Westgate all just made my job so much easier. We have, and it should be said publicly, we have really strong professionals that lead these departments. And so it's collectively their work is, I think, is what's been able to propel us for the last few years. So I'm excited to move forward, and I'm excited to work with the board, and we'll see what the next few years brings. So again, thank you very much for the contract.
Yeah. Thank you, and all the other professionals that make the town run as smoothly as it does. All of our department heads, town hall staff. It's been a
good working relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And they're an excellent team. You got lucky with them. No, you're right. You're absolutely right.
And you have hardly any gray hairs.
No, I've only picked up a couple in the last 4 years.
Thank you. Thank you. All deserved.
all set? We're all done?
Yes, we should probably have a discussion. We had an email with some interest in the board members discussion. I was just going to make mention, I think we had an email with some interest in the Holy Angels Church. So I wonder if we should kind of tie that discussion into an upcoming discussion with downtown revitalization.
Yeah, with the EDC and see what they're thinking, right? Because if CARP is working on an RFP and the EDC was partnering with them, right, I would think we'd want to talk about it in that context. But I don't know if you
No, that would be, yeah.
right, there's a,
Yeah. And I mean, there's a process that you have to go through before you can sell anything anyways. I mean, you can't just outright sell something.
well, it might be senses, right? Like we have a vision, we did a downtown work, like there's a whole process that's in place. So it's in the, right, the town has asked us as stewards to do what we can to adhere to that vision and move that vision forward. So anything that we can do to facilitate that, I'm certainly a fan of it.
So much.
Myself as well.
Okay.
Great. Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous action.